Let's talk about Guards by Terry Pratchett. Now, this was not the first Discworld book I read. I more or less read them in order, and this is book 8 in the series, and book 1 of the Guards mini-series. I always liked them. I kept reading them when I was only 10 or so because I really liked them. And some I thought were very, very funny, and some I thought were, well, pretty good. This was one of the first ones that I loved, as maybe an early teenager or just before that. And it's often seen as a good entry point into the series. Many would say the best book to enter the series on. And it's my first reread in about 20 years. I've never reread this one before. So here's the idea. Here's the basic plot. There's a fantasy world, and in that fantasy world, well, it's a satire on the real world and on the fantasy genre. That's what the Discworld is. There's a disc on the back of 4 elephants on the back of a turtle flying through space with its own sun that orbits everything. So that's the setup. It's a satire on the fantasy genre and on the real world. And in that fantasy world, there is a corrupt and criminal city. It's a sort of comedy Lankmar, or a comedy London, or a comedy both. Most crimes, for instance, in terms of how corrupt and criminal it is, most crimes are actually legalised and regulated. There are guilds that run them instead. And this is about the City Watch in that city, the first book. And of course, in such a city, there's not very much need for a police force, for a City Watch. It's dedicated famously, and many people who are watching this would even know this, that they may be called the Palace Guard, the City Guard, or the Patrol, whatever the name. Their purpose in any work of heroic fantasy is identical. It is round about chapter 3, or 10 minutes into the film, to rush into the room, attack the hero one at a time, and be slaughtered. No one ever asks them if they wanted to. This book is dedicated to those fine men. So they're a vestigial police force. The Night Watch half of that, there's actually only 3 officers at the start of the book. There's a very drunk captain, a very fat sergeant, and a dubiously human corporal. And they just try to stay out of trouble, ring their bell and say it's 2 o'clock and all's well, even if in fact all is not well. But 2 things happen. One is that an idealistic new member of the force comes and joins them, called Carrot Iron Founderson. And now he's a dwarf by adoption, and he's over 6 foot tall by birth. And the second event is that a ridiculous secret cult manages to start summoning a real dragon that no one has seen in living memory or longer. They're a real Draco Nobilis with enormous wings and can breathe fire and is the greatest predator known to man. And the captain of the watch, Sir Vimes, he's a drunk, but he's a loser, and he's sad, but he's spurred on by Carrot's idealism. Look, here Carrot walks into the Thieves Guild, and it's a sort of interesting parallel to some of the stuff in the Thieves Guild in the Lankmar books. He walks into the Thieves Guild, he arrests the leader of the Thieves Guild, and everyone just lets him because he's very confident. He's very much, hello, what's going on here? Arrest the Thieves Guild because of course he is a criminal, according to Carrot's book of the law, and everyone lets him get away with it. And Vimes thinks, wow, we could actually be doing a job here in some way. But also, there's a dragon going around wrecking Sam Vimes' city, and he's decided he's not going to put up with it. So he puts down the whiskey and he gets down to work. Now, it's fairly action-packed, and there are many other memorable and important characters. There's the recurring, and who are recurring. There's particularly the city's patrician, who is the dictator, the benevolent dictator of the city. He believes in one man, one vote. He is the man, he has the vote. And there's Lady Ramkin, who she breeds miniature dragons, swamp dragons, and that's obviously, you can imagine, an important point of research here, that there's these ridiculous little kind of flying iguanas or something that breathe a little bit of fire and sometimes explode because they can't control themselves properly. So the question is it good? Well, yes, it is a great book. It's not quite the peak writing of the Discworld series. This is book 8. There were 41 books, and the peak is all through the latter teens into the mid-30s. This is in that sense still fairly early, and just a tiny bit of roughness, but not so much that many people would notice, I think. It's an early example, though, along with other early books like Mort, which was book 4, and Weird Sisters, which I think is book 6, of exactly why Discworld is brilliant. And it is not because it is incredibly funny satire. The two novels that are most like straight satire, Colour of Magic, Light Fantastic, the first two novels in the series, are some of the worst reviewed. I mean, I enjoyed them, I should say, but, you know, they are less well liked than many later books. And Pratchett's great gift is not therefore simply just writing a funny parody or satire of fantasy. It's in combining an absurdity that really mirrors real life human experience with incredible character work and thought-provoking concepts. So those three: absurdity that mirrors real human experience, wonderful character work, and thought-provoking concepts. It's genuinely speculative fiction in that sense, not merely parody, not merely a humorous book. And Sam Vimes is a man, therefore as a character, let's talk character work, who has hit the bottom and he's lost nearly everything except perhaps pride, stubbornness, mulishness. He is an everyman. He's not literally one of nature's losers, never accomplished anything. He succeeded a bit, but he is a washout. He is past his sell-by. He doesn't think there's any way up, there's only a way down. But there's something inside him that waits for the right hour, like Grant at Galena. And Carrot, on the other hand, very different kind of character. He's exactly what a hero should be, except he doesn't realise that he's a hero. He's dedicated to learning a statute book that everyone else has forgotten existed, and people really wish Carrot had forgotten existed too. And somehow his belief in the law makes the law real again. And even the dragon, this raw cunning combined with pure animal appetite. The dragon has a well-drawn personality, and you come to know the desires of the dragon and why it wants certain things and why it does certain things. And the book is funny. This is how funny it was. I didn't laugh much. Why didn't I laugh much? Because this humour, this Terry Pratchett humour, is already inside me. Pratchett has so moulded the way I think and the way humour works for me that the jokes seem to spring up internally as I read them. They are natural to me. I do find them hilarious, but frankly it's an almost meditative, zen-like hilarity because they are so internal. But truth be told, I still laugh out loud on a few occasions. It's a great fantasy book. It's moving, it's intelligent, it's very funny, so you ought to read it. Tell me what you think in the comments if you have read it. Till next time.